So I'm actually going to split the session in two. I'm going to take you through some of the things that we've been doing over the last year, some of the plans that we've got for the next year, and then open it up for questions. So maybe think of the first half as prompts for questions later. Take notes. So VIP Go is our default position on VIP now. So if you have a new client, new site, that's going to be going on to VIP Go. It's where the majority of our focus is for developer tools, for platform improvements, and it's definitely a possibility if you're hosted on our WordPress.com platform to move to VIP Go, and you should talk to one of the many Automaticians VIPs that you can see around about that possibility. I am not alone in the room. We also have Mo, Josh, and somewhere around David Newman. So Mo leads our platform team. He's my boss. So he's sitting there with a notebook assessing my performance. Josh, another engineer on the platform team, and David is a VIP systems developer that works on a lot of the deep down, everything from literally wrote the DNS resolvers that we're using on VIP Go to the various Nginx and Varnish configs. So we're here not just because it's a lovely place. We're here because we want to chat to you. We want to talk to you about all the things that you want from a VIP WordPress platform, all the hopes that you've got, all the experiences that you've had, any frustrations, any issues, all stuff that we want to hear. That's all going to feed how we prioritize work over the next year and coming years. So if you have any questions while you're here, definitely grab, particularly about the platform, myself, Mo, Josh, David, and talk to us and walk us through those things. And if one or other of us isn't quite the right person to respond, then we can redirect you and continue that chat. So we're going to break it up. We'll talk about what we have done, what we're going to do, and then we'll open it up for questions. So what's new over the last year on VIP Go? We've developed a new cron infrastructure. So this is a way of running the WordPress cron events using a standard WordPress cron events API, so all of the WP schedule event, recurring events, being able to change the schedule to the different level of recurrence. It's all using the standard internal WordPress event API. But it's based not on the internal WordPress core events infrastructure. Instead, we've split out essentially the system resources that are running web requests from the systems resources that are running cron events. So we based it on WP CLI. There's a completely separate set of infrastructure for every VIP Go site, which is running a little application which every minute grabs all the cron events which need to be run, parcels those out to cron runners, and they run all the events. And we can scale that infrastructure horizontally in the same way as we can scale the infrastructure for web requests. So both those things entirely separate, both those things scaled entirely independently. And it allows us to guarantee the scheduling and to make sure that everything is running to the scale that a VIP site needs, and also on time. We've recently built out a pipeline for synchronizing data from a production site to a non-production environment. So this is a common requirement. So you have a bug that you need to replicate in a non-production environment, or you have some QA that needs to run on production levels of data or similar to production data. So we have a way now of taking a VIP-sized database, restoring it to a non-production environment. We can run really fast search and replace. So we have a little search and replace application that Josh wrote, which runs 40 times faster than WP CLI search and replace, enables us to do massive content database search and replaces really, really quickly. It runs through a bunch of cleanup operations that are standard across VIP, things like making sure that the Jetpack connection from the production site is disconnected and a new connection is made for non-production. Similar with WordPress. But it also enables you, the client developers, to write your own custom cleanup. So if you've got custom API keys specific to your application running in production, there's a route, there's a series of hooks, of filters that you can use to make sure that those API keys are removed in the non-production environment and everything is made safe for your testing or your QA process. Media is handled separately. So everything I've talked about up to now is the database operations. Media is handled by something called the Union FS, the Union File System. So what this does, quite simply, is make the files that have been uploaded to your production system, the user-uploaded files, makes them available in the non-production environments that are associated with that production site. So you upload news.jpg to your production site, you can access that file at the same path, but at the non-production domains, the non-production URLs. We've released Jetpack Search. So Jetpack Search is our solution for Elasticsearch on the VIPGo infrastructure. It's one solution for Elasticsearch on VIPGo. It basically consists of a number of parts. So Jetpack has a sync service, which looks at the content, looks at all the posts, looks at all the users, terms, taxonomies, and every time anything changes, it synchronizes those pieces of content out to a shadow data store on the WordPress.com infrastructure. That shadow data store is indexed by Elasticsearch, and then that Elasticsearch queries are exposed via an endpoint, and that's all packaged up back on the VIPGo application within something called Jetpack Search. So you've got a sync service, moving it out, indexing to Elasticsearch, and then a Jetpack Search API and functionality on the client application, or on the WordPress application, which replaces the core site search, so it's not using MySQL, and also allows you to do various custom operations like searching across post meta or searching through attached documents, that kind of thing. We've released Let's Encrypt. So Let's Encrypt, for those who are not familiar, is a certificate authority for releasing SSL certificates. So far, so normal, but the key differentiator for Let's Encrypt is, one, that the certificates are free, but more importantly, that they provide an API, a programmable API, for accessing, provisioning, reprovisioning those certificates. So rather than going through a manual process of turning up at Namecheap or GoDaddy or whatever to procure your SSL certificate, instead you've got an API, and we have all the integrations with that API. So once we've set up a Let's Encrypt certificate on your production site, we can just renew that certificate automatically every 3 months when it expires, or before it expires. We've implemented the VIP code review. So VIP code review on WordPress.com, you may well be familiar with. You submit an SVN commit, and then we review that, and it's not a terribly transparent process for the client developer. On VIPGo, we've moved that code review process onto GitHub. GitHub provides industry-leading code collaboration tools. So that's the best place, really, for collaborating across a distributed team like VIP, but also bearing in mind that our broader team with our clients includes our client developer team. So there you can have all the code collaboration, code commenting features that GitHub provides on their pull requests, and also opens up some opportunities for CI integration, which I'm going to talk about later. A couple of other things worthy of mention. We have something called IP allow lists. So that's the ability for your site to be constrained so it can only be accessed by a specific set of IP addresses. So it may be good for intranets, extranets, where you have a very defined audience and you want to be sure that nobody else is accessing it. We rolled out PHP 7.2, I don't know, maybe a month or two ago now. So we're up to date on that. And we have some very, very nascent Node.js hosting capability. So we have, I think, just one client Node.js application, but that's something we're opening up and looking to open up. If you're interested in that, if you think that's something that your company could use, your team could use, please do chat with Josh or Mo specifically would be the best people to talk about with that. So let's talk about what's next. The theme that we have for our roadmap in the platform team, we're working on the client developer experience. And we want a theme, we want to have everything that we do match this theme of empowering the client developer to do what they need to do with their WordPress application, with their Node.js application. So we're going to be introducing some platform CLI tooling. I mentioned platform specifically because this is not necessarily running WP CLI commands. So you can see here that we're running data sync. So we want to make operations as self-service as possible. So you can install this CLI tool. You can use it to list out all the applications that you've got access to. You can then look for one application and see what environments you're running. You can then perform actions on those environments, and the first of those actions is going to be data sync. And you can see here that it's running down, it's initialized, it's currently preparing the environment. It's going to give you feedback as you go through. We're also developing a client dashboard. So this is a web-based dashboard. Very, very similar kind of idea to the CLI tool in that we want to expose all of the information that we can to you, the client teams, so that you can see what applications you've got, you can see the environments, and you can also collaborate with our team and within your own team on those environments. So maybe in a launch situation, we'd like to be able to do things like have the status of running actions exposed. So you're going through a launch, you might be, for example, replacing the pre-launch domains with the live production domains. So you could see one of your colleagues has kicked off that search operation, and you can see what the status is and how far it's got through the data. I mentioned earlier that GitHub affords us some opportunities with CI, continuous integration. So we're going to be releasing soon the functionality where every PR runs through just some basic PHP linting to make sure that nothing has slipped through the net there. But also some PHP code sniffer rules. So the VIP code sniffer rule set, which is basically a codified version of our code review rules. And I know a lot of you are going to be running that kind of thing locally in your development environments, but this also helps catch those occasions when that turns out not to have been configured quite as well, or you've got new developers on your team who aren't quite set up yet, or perhaps less experienced teams that we work with often as well. So this gives you that feedback very, very quickly on the PR that something is wrong that needs to be addressed, so you're not waiting even the short amount of time that we need for a human reviewer to get to review. What are we going to be working on next? So we have this theme of empowerment, and I'm going to be breaking this down into now, next, and later. So stuff we're working on right now, stuff that we expect to be working on next, and stuff that we're hoping to work on later. And that's really, as you project further out into the future, those things naturally become less certain, and when we get to them, we may find that those priorities have shifted around slightly. So right now, we're working on a number of the tools really that I've just shown you. So the CLI tool, the dashboard, self-service data sync. We're working, I've spoken to a couple of people here already about build and deploy functionality. So this is the idea that at the moment on VIP Go, you push your code changes up to the master branch on GitHub, and our service receives a notification that there's new code, does a git pull, and then deploys that code to all of the web and CLI resources for your site. With a build and deploy functionality, there would be a slightly different flow, which allows you to keep your built JavaScript and your built CSS out of the master branch, so you've got a clean clean working copy. So in that situation, you would push up to master. Continuous integration would notice the push through a webhook, would run a script, build the resources, and then push that to a different branch, master-built, and that's the branch, the master-built branch is the one that the site will be deployed from. So it just keeps your working environment a bit cleaner. And then the linting and PHP code sniffer that we talked about. After that, we're looking at how we can make the process of launching a site on VIP Go easier, quicker, more friction-free. So that might be things along the lines of using our CLI tool to expose data import, so you can stream SQL through to the unlaunched site. It might be similar to upload media. It might be providing the kind of collaboration tools in the dashboard so that you've got launch steps in that web dashboard available for the whole team to see what the status is and run through. There's all kinds of possibilities there that we'll dig into once we get to that piece of work. We're also looking to support more and different caching scenarios. So on VIP Go at the moment, every request, every anonymous request is cached on one of our 26, I think it is, edge pops around the world. So there's a bunch of them in Europe, a bunch of them in America, and then all around the rest of the world, Australia, Singapore, so on. So at the moment, you can vary that cache based on a country code so that you can tailor your content to the UK and have that cache separately to the content that you've tailored for, say, Venezuela. And then maybe you serve the rest of the world with everything with a default set of content. We can also tailor the cache to user agent groupings. So we have a user agent grouping for mobile, user agent grouping for tablet, smartphone, and desktop. And so we're looking to expand what else you can do with that cache. So maybe you want to run some A/B testing, but you want that still to be cached. Maybe that's based on a cookie. So you cookie the user with a particular A/B testing cookie, and then you can split out the traffic at the edge, but it's still cached. Maybe you want to run a paywall, and you will need functionality in our cache to facilitate the running of that paywall. That's the kind of scenarios that we're looking at. So if you have any scenarios where you're working with VIP Go at the moment, or you're working with WordPress.com and you've got paywall and A/B test scenarios, that's definitely stuff we would love to talk to you about and understand your needs and requirements so that as we design this functionality and implement it, it's genuinely useful for the client development teams and the clients. Later, I've heard from a lot of people I've spoken to so far, and it's not the first time we've heard it, we would absolutely love to be able to offer WP CLI commands to clients. Probably running those through the platform CLI tool. So maybe streaming the request out to the remote CLI resources. So I mentioned talking about the cron infrastructure that was running on CLI resources. So at the moment we're running that with WP CLI, and that's always been designed, always been thought of as a dual purpose portion of the infrastructure for a site. It's not just for cron. It's always been designed that we're going to run WP CLI. So we've got little pieces of that puzzle in place now. We want to support more flexible development scenarios. So say in the Git flow developer workflow that you may be familiar with, you'll very often run master branch off for a feature, develop it, and we'd like to, at that point, to allow you to spin up a transient environment. We've got the data sync functionality, so sync your production data to that transient environment, leave that up and running ready for your QA team or your client to check it, get the approval, submit the PR for VIP code review, merge it, and the transient environment goes away. And maybe you have several of those transient environments running at any point, which allows you to test stuff in isolation, as I'm sure I don't need to tell you. We'd like to give you access to error and access logs. And I've talked to a couple of people who are actually using CDN services in front of various of our hosting platforms at the moment, which allow them to stream out error and access logs for things like SEO purposes, so that you can look and see what bots are crawling your site, get an understanding of how that's happening, get an understanding of capturing events and requests on sites that are not covered by things like Google Analytics necessarily. So it would be interesting for us to be able to support scenarios like that. We're looking at also, we're aware that at the moment our local development recommendation includes basically a set of instructions for setting up VVV. We'd like to be able to run something a little bit more tailored to our client development teams and to our environment and make that a lot smoother of an experience. And I'm sure there's going to be other things that come up in conversation this week and come up in all the conversations that we have throughout the year, throughout the months of the year when we talk to client developers. We're always open, all of us chatting through after you've finished a project, when you're in the middle of a project, really to understand how you've been using our platform and how you're working through things at the moment. So I said we were going to split up. That's the first portion. We're on the AMA section now, but please don't constrain your questions to just this session. Feel free to pop it out in other sessions. Yes?
My main question would be, like, how would, on the top level, how would you, I guess, describe the migration from VIP legacy to VIP Go?
So the question is, how would we outline, I guess, the process of moving a site from WordPress.com to VIP Go? There's a couple of scenarios and a couple of ways that we might think about that. So WordPress.com is, roughly speaking, just WordPress in the same way as VIP Go is just WordPress. They're all at core running the same software. The data structures are the same. So WordPress.com is a very large multi-site, as you're aware. If you're moving just one site, the process would be that the VIP team take the data from your WordPress.com site, we run the migration scripts and move it into a VIP Go environment. Same thing for the files. And then we'd take a copy of the code from SVN on WordPress.com, put it in GitHub, and provide you with a list of anything we think might cause problems there. We have a lot of code in place on the VIP Go platform, which is designed to basically mimic the functionality that a particular function has on WordPress.com with an equivalent set of functionality on VIP Go. So that you shouldn't hit any significant issues with most of the functions, most of the VIP provided functions that you're using on WordPress.com are available on VIP Go. There are some key differences. So on WordPress.com, we run a caching system called Backcache, and that's a caching system that works in the PHP layer. So it has some more flexible possibilities than the VIP Go caching system, and also has some trade-offs as well. So everything that needs to be, every response that comes out of WordPress.com comes from one of the origin data centers, whereas every response that comes out of VIP Go, if it's a cached response, comes out of our edge, which is much, much closer to your customers. But the key difference, thinking in terms of migration, is the vary cache on function that some of you might be using to support things like paywalls. That's not something that we are supporting on VIP Go at the moment. And that's the point that I mentioned that we're working on next to support more flexible caching scenarios on VIP Go. I've not been super involved in migration, so is there anyone on the VIP team who has? Caitlin? Hi. Is there anything that you want to sort of add in terms of migrating sites from WordPress.com to VIP Go?
Yeah, I mean, one of the big things that we're working on.
So I can answer that one. So there's a couple of considerations there. So if you wanted your users to keep logging in via WordPress.com, that's possible. We can turn on the Jetpack single sign-on, which basically allows you to use a WordPress.com site login to sign in on a remote Jetpack site. Alternatively, we can just migrate your users to the new VIP Go site and they can sign in there. Alternatively, again, one of the things that VIP Go does give us, which many of our clients have taken advantage of, is the ability to run a completely different single sign-on system. So you could use, Paul's using the Google single sign-on via Google Apps. You could use something completely different if you have your own corporate single sign-on. So there's a sort of a range of options that you've got there, from staying with the WordPress.com login system to just using a local WordPress login as you would with a standard downloaded from .org installation, to integrating with your own single sign-on. I'm going to just expand on a couple of things that Paul's mentioned there. So one is that Josh has been working on, and we're going to be expanding the scope of this, a PR bot. So where plugins are the responsibility of VIP, on VIP Go, your site deploys from a GitHub repository on our WPCon VIP organization. And so that gives us a lot of control. It allows us, Paul was saying, you to keep your updates on your own schedule. But it also means that we've shattered out where we were previously referencing a single plugin that many clients might have installed from a single point on the SVN repo. We have that distributed now across many siloed repos on the WPCon VIP repository. So the way we deal with that is we have a bot that will go through all of the repos. We'll look for plugins that are out-of-date plugins. Maybe if we, heaven forfend, had some kind of security issue on a WordPress plugin at some point. These things are inevitable, right? It's code. So you would have the bot go out, open a PR. In the normal course of things, you would be pinged via GitHub, and you would merge that PR after you've gone through your own testing. In the case of some kind of serious security issue, we would actually merge that PR for you and take the action to make sure that your site is safe. So that's one thing to mention. Paul mentioned, yeah.
We only do that for a small select number of plugins.
At the moment. So that's a program we're expanding out. We've got a trial project that we're looking at whether we can use a similar thing for languages. So as you enable languages in the admin console, can we keep those language files up to date with a similar system using the PR bot? Paul mentioned the plugins folder. So your repo is structured pretty much, think of it as a WP content folder. So you've got plugins, you've got themes. You've got a file called vip-config.php, which is essentially included at one point during WP config. So but you can essentially think of it as WP content. Yeah, that's kind of all I wanted to mention. Any other questions?
Just to add on this.
Yeah, so the traditional approach within Varnish is the vary response header. So you can, with your own regular core install of Varnish, you can say vary cache on, and then whatever kind of request header. That's kind of an interesting approach because it allows a lot of flexibility. But at a scale of a VIP site, a very high traffic site particularly, can cause some problems. So for example, if you consider vary basing on the cookie header. So if you actually look at the cookie header in HTTP, it's basically, it looks a bit like a query string parameter. So it's cookie X equals content of cookie X, and cookie Y equals content of cookie Y. And the order isn't guaranteed. So you shatter your cache bucketing into as many different cache buckets as you've got variants within that cookie header, which can basically completely degrade your caching to the point that it doesn't exist. So the way that we do deal with that with the two forms of cache variants that we allow at the moment are one, so with the country header, our load balancers look at the incoming IP address, and we'll set a country code request header at the load balancer, which then gets propagated through to the web application containers. And so PHP can then see that country code and can send a vary header saying vary on this request header, so vary on GB, which is the country code for UK or US or whatever. Similar with the user agents. So there's a vary header that you can send for, so at our load balancers at the edge, we look at your user agent string. So rather than letting you vary on every single user agent string, we bucket it up. Jetpack actually provides a mirror of the same user agent buckets. So that enables you to keep your caching working efficiently and performantly. So as we move on, we may, in places, echo that similar functionality. So we might allow you to specify a particular cookie for A/B testing, and to actually say just this cookie, so this portion of the cookie header is what we want to vary the cache on. We don't care about all the other cookies. I'm waiting for David to tell me I'm saying the wrong thing. We want instead just to say company X A/B test cookie, that's the value that we're varying on. And so if you put 6 different values in that, you set 6 different values in that cookie, then you'll have 6 different buckets within your cache, times, if you're using countries, however many different country codes you're using. So you can kind of see how you easily end up with a lot of buckets. The other interesting thing to bear in mind with the VIP Go caching, which I kind of mentioned in passing, is it's not one cache. Every single one of our edge pops has a separate cache within it. So you've actually got 26 cache buckets kind of geographically distributed around the world anyway. So as you access it from the US, you're hitting a different cache in one portion of the US or other than I am if I hit it from the UK, where I'm hitting our London cache. Does that answer your question? How do you mean for the API? Sorry.
For the API.
Oh, for like the WordPress REST API. Yeah, sure. It's just web requests as far as we're concerned. The only thing that doesn't hit cache in terms of web requests is web sockets, which go straight through via various Nginx sandwich layers to the application containers. So Obama got asked this question in a Reddit AMA, and having done some research, it's 100 duck-sized horses, because you can get to higher ground and throw things at them. And horses have relatively fragile legs, famously. So yeah. Anyway, that's the answer. Anything else that I can help anyone with? No? Please do catch me, Josh, Mo, David, any of the VIPs, and talk to us. Yeah. All right. Class released. Thank you.